Sophie Cunningham making some comments about WNBA fans, what she believes fans last year had volunteered to join the Fever as Caitlin Clark's enforcer.
Is this the moment the WNBA finally lost its most valuable asset? Just as the league thought it was soaring, immune to the chaos, a perfect storm hit. A reckless public controversy that alienated the fans, and a financial threat so massive it promised to rewrite the rules of women's basketball forever. Right at the center of the unraveling are two seismic events.
And that's Angel McCoughtry, a really good player. Six-time All-Star, two-time scoring champ. She makes some comments about Project B. I think she's saying the quiet part out loud.
Sophie Cunningham's shocking comments about the fan base and the jaw-dropping emergence of Project B. The numbers have now dropped, delivered by a certified league legend, and they prove one thing beyond any doubt: Caitlin Clark's departure from the WNBA isn't just a possibility, it's a financial, life-altering inevitability. Forget loyalty. This isn't a negotiation. This is an astronomical, generational money move that will reshape the entire sport, and the WNBA is clearly outside the grasp of its biggest star's future. The first crack in the foundation came from within, courtesy of a teammate. Cunningham's recent controversial comments about WNBA fans lit an absolute firestorm, adding fuel to a volatile situation that was already reaching critical mass. She essentially accused the audience, the very people driving the league's record-breaking ratings, of failing to separate a player's aggressive on-court identity from their off-court personality. While she may have been trying to ask for empathy, the implied criticism of the fan base sparked a significant immediate backlash. This wasn't just a simple misstep, it exposed a fundamental and disturbing disconnect between the players and the audience, which is the oxygen supply for the league's survival, further destabilizing a foundation that was already starting to crumble. But that internal strife is only a distraction from the real threat. The seismic shift is coming from a shadowy new entity, Project B, which is poised to disrupt the entire landscape of women's professional basketball. This isn't just another league. It's an economic earthquake promising sums that absolutely dwarf anything the WNBA has ever offered. Forget incremental raises and long contract negotiations. Project B is swinging for the fences, aiming to lure away the very best talent, starting with the league's most marketable assets with unfathomable wealth. Its emergence threatens to create an exodus, a mass departure of players seeking life-changing financial security. And what happened next would shock everyone. The truth about this threat was laid out with stark, chilling clarity by former WNBA All-Star and true legend, Angel McCoughtry. Her insights are a devastating, undeniable blow to the WNBA's entire narrative, revealing the harsh, cold financial reality players face. McCoughtry, a veteran who volunteered to be Clark's enforcer last season, speaks from experience, having seen the league's limitations firsthand. She pulls back the curtain, exposing the chasm between current pay and the future being dangled before these athletes. Her blunt analysis forces every player to ask a question that changes everything. If you're going to get paid $5 million, why put your body through playing the DMN WNBA? The financial disparity is nothing short of breathtaking. Consider the current WNBA max contract, which hovers around the $250,000 mark for top-tier players, a figure that barely registers in the world of major professional sports. Now juxtapose that with Project B's proposed minimum salary, a staggering $2 million plus equity. This isn't a small bump, it's an almost unimaginable leap, an 8-fold increase for even an end-of-the-bench player. This single figure exposes the WNBA's complete inability to compete, making any loyalty appear financially irresponsible to athletes with short, high-risk careers. But that wasn't the whole story. Adding insult to injury, McCoughtry completely shatters the long-held myth that WNBA players prefer to stay in the United States. For years, the convenient narrative has been spun that players prioritize being home, making domestic off-season leagues like Unrivaled, which only offers around a $250,000 salary, attractive. But McCoughtry calls this BS. She explains that this manufactured preference is largely a convenient negotiating tactic that completely overlooks the desire for truly life-altering money. She recounts her own best experiences overseas, in places like Istanbul, Turkey, describing a vibrant life of rich culture and world-class travel. The idea of combining global travel with high-level basketball and immense pay is presented not as a sacrifice, but as a complete lifestyle upgrade. The truth is, players will travel and they will go anywhere for the right price. Now, let's talk about the true game changer. If an average player can pull $2 million just for showing up, what about the reigning titans of the WNBA? McCoughtry's projections for a player of Caitlin Clark's magnitude are absolutely jaw-dropping. The speculation centers on an offer of $15 million or even a stunning $25 million per year. These aren't just numbers, they're a declaration. They represent a scale of wealth that would completely transform her life and her family's legacy, far beyond anything the WNBA, in its current financial state, could ever hope to offer. Her exit would be more than just a devastating blow, it would be the ultimate signal that the WNBA simply can't afford its own stars. The confluence of these factors, the astronomical financial pull of Project B, the shattering of the stay-home myth, and the internal strife highlighted by the Cunningham player-fan controversy, creates a perfect storm. It's an environment where leaving the WNBA for unprecedented riches becomes not just a viable option, but the overwhelmingly logical, common-sense choice for any athlete. The WNBA now faces an existential threat unlike anything in its history, battling to retain its brightest stars with a handful of cash, while its rivals offer a full vault of gold and a piece of the kingdom. The imminent departure of a superstar like Caitlin Clark, driven by this irresistible financial reality, isn't just a possibility anymore. It feels like an unavoidable reality that is poised to rewrite the future of women's basketball forever. The question isn't whether she should take the money, but how long she can morally afford not to. The WNBA's problem isn't just about Project B offering more money, it's about the league's fundamental failure to respect its own history. For decades, players have been forced to play 2 or 3 seasons a year just to make a living, sacrificing their bodies in grueling overseas leagues to earn the money their domestic league wouldn't pay. McCoughtry's account isn't just a veteran's perspective, it's a condemnation of an economic model that has viewed its elite athletes as disposable and perpetually underpaid. The $250,000 WNBA max contract, which only a handful of players even receive, becomes not a symbol of success, but a badge of shame for the league when compared to the average salary in the NBA, which sits at over $10 million. This decades-long indifference to player wealth has hollowed out the WNBA's argument for loyalty, leaving it completely exposed the moment a serious financial alternative arrived. The player versus fan controversy stoked by Sophie Cunningham further complicates this financial collapse. By implying that fans are too quick to judge a player's character based on their competitive drive, she inadvertently highlighted the massive pay gap that fuels the very aggression she defends. When a player's entire livelihood and the ability to skip an exhausting overseas season depends on winning, every play, every foul, every push becomes an economic decision. Fans see intensity, players see a paycheck. Cunningham's argument risked brushing aside legitimate fan concerns about certain behaviors, blurring the crucial line between fierce hustle and genuinely unsportsmanlike conduct. This internal divide over how players perceive themselves versus how they are viewed publicly only exacerbates the league's public image problems, driving away the very supporters needed to fund those future contracts. The WNBA is now actively fighting the audience it should be courting. The scale of the threat posed by Project B cannot be overstated. When a league offers equity to its athletes, it completely reframes the relationship from an employer-employee dynamic to one of partners. Players aren't just earning a salary, they're owning a piece of an entity that could explode in value, aligning their long-term financial interests directly with the league's growth. This kind of generational wealth, the chance to provide for great-grandchildren, not just retire comfortably, is an irresistible proposition. It is a level of security that the WNBA, tied down by legacy financial structures and television deals, can't touch. The league is now facing the moral question of forcing its athletes to choose between team pride and financial security that their families desperately deserve. The truth is, Clark is now in the most powerful position in all of women's sports. Her marketability transcends basketball. It's a cultural phenomenon. To put her potential Project B earnings into stark perspective, that estimated $20 million annually means she could earn more in 3 or 4 seasons than many WNBA legends earned in their entire 15-year careers combined, endorsements included. Why should Clark put her body on the line for a league that cannot and will not adequately compensate her for the value she generates? Her decision will set the financial standard for every female athlete who comes after her. If she stays, she sets a dangerous precedent, essentially giving the WNBA a discount on her value. If she goes, she secures her future and elevates the entire pay scale for women's professional basketball globally. The numbers don't lie, and they point to the only logical outcome: a departure fueled by an immense financial promise the WNBA simply can't afford to let her refuse. This is the moment the league realizes that fame and popularity cannot be paid for with promises, only cash. This cash versus loyalty narrative crystallizes the WNBA's fundamental conflict. It has produced a global superstar whose value has outpaced the league's ability to pay her. When Caitlin Clark arrived, she was meant to be the savior, the guaranteed key to unlocking a massive new media rights deal. Now she is the unintended bomb that threatens to blow the whole structure apart. The WNBA was betting its future on her drawing power to force networks to open their wallets. But Project B has bypassed the entire slow, bureaucratic rights negotiation process by coming straight to the source, the player, and offering a deal too rich to ignore. It is a stunning, brilliant flanking maneuver that has rendered the WNBA's negotiating strategy instantly obsolete. The league now faces the prospect of losing its main selling point before the new media deal is signed, leaving them with an empty room and a begging bowl. Project B's emergence is a direct, brutal answer to the league's long-standing culture of requiring a side hustle for its athletes. For decades, playing in the WNBA was often seen as a summer commitment, a bridge between two more lucrative overseas seasons. This economic reliance on foreign leagues forced players to endure an absurd year-round physical grind, contributing to higher rates of injury and burnout. When McCoughtry speaks of the travel and culture of Istanbul, she's not just romanticizing. She's describing a financially necessitated system that the WNBA tacitly endorsed. The difference now is that Project B is offering that overseas money right here in a structure built around the players' well-being, and with ownership. This move completely dismantles the WNBA's claim that it is the premier defining league for women's basketball. The WNBA is suddenly reduced to the underpaying incumbent, the minor league that players must survive before they can claim true financial freedom. The question of loyalty disappears when the alternative is financial exploitation veiled as tradition. The Cunningham controversy, while seemingly a separate issue, is directly interwoven with the financial instability. The fans who flock to games and drive social media engagement are doing so, in part because they invest deeply in the narratives, personalities, and competitive drama. Yet when a player like Cunningham suggests the audience is failing the players, it creates a toxic environment where the act of supporting the league feels like an obligation rather than a joy. This is a critical error. The WNBA's primary product is not just basketball, it is the connection between the player and the fan. The league is already struggling to justify its low pay, and alienating the fan base only destroys the very financial engine, ticket sales, merchandise, viewership that could potentially close the pay gap. In this context, the departure of Clark, the most beloved and debated star, will feel like a final betrayal. The fans didn't fail the league failed to create an economic structure worthy of their devotion. Caitlin Clark's decision is no longer just about her career, it is a labor negotiation on a global scale. If she accepts the $20 million or more Project B is offering, she is not only accepting a paycheck, she is officially establishing the market price for elite female basketball talent. She becomes a pioneer who used her celebrity to force a paradigm shift. Her move would immediately increase the perceived value of every female athlete worldwide. The WNBA understands this perfectly. If Clark leaves, it signals to every young talent that their ultimate goal should be Project B, not the WNBA, and that the domestic league is merely a stepping stone. Furthermore, Project B's structure, which allows players to potentially have a shorter, higher-paid season, addresses the injury and burnout concerns that have plagued the WNBA for years. For Clark, this isn't a heart-wrenching goodbye, it's a strategically flawless move that secures her legacy both financially and professionally. She won't be viewed as a defector, but as a revolutionary who refused to be undersold. The WNBA's biggest fear is realized. Its biggest star is now a pure business person, and the numbers dictate only one conclusion. The clock is ticking, and every second she spends on a WNBA court is now viewed as an uninsured financial risk. The fallout from Project B's threat and the looming departure of Clark forces a harsh spotlight onto the WNBA's leadership. Where is the counter-strategy? Where is the emergency financial mobilization? The silence is deafening, perhaps because there is no immediate fix. The league is structurally incapable of matching those offers without a complete overhaul of its collective bargaining agreement and a revolutionary new media deal, changes that take years, not weeks, to implement. They are fighting a venture capital war with a grassroots budget. This inertia sends a devastating message to the remaining players: we cannot afford you, and we won't change fast enough. The WNBA's only remaining defense is an emotional plea, the invocation of history, tradition, and the prestige of playing in the United States. But as McCoughtry pointed out, that prestige pays no bills. In fact, many players would gladly trade a season of domestic prestige for the guarantee of generational wealth. The league's most desperate move might be to pressure Clark herself, leaning on the narrative that staying is an act of selfless service to the women's game. However, this tactic is both manipulative and short-sighted. Clark already saved the women's game by increasing its visibility tenfold. Now it's time for the league to pay the dividend on her investment. Her staying would simply prolong the WNBA's outdated economic model. By leaving, she forces the entire professional ecosystem to value women's basketball appropriately. Her exit isn't a loss for the movement, it's the catalyst for the ultimate pay equity revolution. The countdown to the great exodus has begun, and the WNBA leadership remains in the crosshairs, unable to shield the league from the economic reality it spent decades creating.